Joining us now to break down the latest revelations and what they mean for the remainder of the 2020 race is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. So Liz, this is a subject that I know that you've been following very closely for the better part of 2, 3, maybe 4 years. I mean, it really goes back to the beginning of the Russia investigation itself. But now we're hearing that perhaps there won't be any report at all. There might not be any indictments until after the election. Is that a troubling development for you?
Well, we'll have to see what happens. We certainly want this investigation to follow the evidence and the facts. And that's what we've been counting on this whole time. But I think it is really important that we do get the entire story here. Because, look, we've learned a lot, hard, concrete evidence just in the past couple of months combined with the General Flynn case and what Sidney Powell's uncovered, as well as what's been released so far by the Attorney General from the Durham investigation, which is essentially this. Barack Obama and Joe Biden instructed the FBI to get the right people to get Trump. So we know that's confirmed. We already have that evidence. And I know I've said before that I'm really certainly looking more for indictments than a report in and of itself. But I think it is important that we do get the full story and the full truth, because what we're seeing in all these snippets of the real concrete evidence is this was a total con. And William Barnett's notes, and as well as the notes from the FBI agents where they were scrambling that first week of January 2017, that's critical to this timeline because it really shows that this was a setup. This was all a con to try to discredit the incoming new president of the United States, who 63 million of us voted for. And they were trying to subvert his election. And so I think it's important to get that entire truth out there because we know the Mueller report did not tell that full truth, the full story. It was a lot of smoke and a lot of allusions and innuendo. But at the end of the day, they couldn't find collusion, but it was packaged in a way to try to destroy and malign President Trump, even if they never had the evidence to begin with.
And building on that comparison to the Mueller report as well, I think that it's interesting because right now there's some speculation that perhaps there won't be a report, that it could only come in the form of indictments. And I think it is worth noting, too, that everybody who says that it might come after the election is saying that this is a very real and a very substantive investigation that's taking place behind the scenes. But when we talk about the immediate, for example, the Mueller investigation, it did focus on indictments. We didn't see the report until the very end, but when the indictments were coming down, those in the media used it as speculation as to what could come next. I remember it was Paul Manafort, it was Rick Gates, it was Carter Page, Roger Stone, and they were saying that this was part of a bigger picture, only for it not to be. So even if there are indictments that come down, would you like to see some form of report from John Durham?
I would like to see it all laid out, much like the Senate report that we just saw with all these new revelations about the Biden family. I mean, think of this, because it is complex. I mean, we've been following it for many years. So there's so many moving parts to this story. But think of this. I just opened up the Mueller report. You know what Volume 1 is called? It's called a report on the investigation into Russian election interference.
Yeah.
So the report on the election interference, on Russian interference, was using Russian interference as the basis of their investigation into Russian interference. I mean, that's how corrupt this is. What we've learned about the dossier's subsource, the only source to that sham, it was all a bunch of lies. So it's really important here to put all of these pieces together. Hillary Clinton and the DNC paying for this, the Obama-Biden cabal at the FBI, not just the FBI, though. We have the CIA, we have the DNI, we know Jim Clapper and John Brennan, all of these people were intricately involved. But the story itself is pretty simple. Democrats lost an election, and they decided to sabotage their duly elected successors by continuing a sham investigation that they had already started into their political opponents. I mean, that's what they did. They spied on their political opponents. And it was a continuation of that. So I think we do deserve it. I think the American people deserve clarity, because the entire Mueller report was just subterfuge. It was just smoke and mirrors. It wasn't truth. It wasn't designed to be clear. And that's what the American people deserve. We deserve to have the full truth, not trying to deceive anybody, but just have it out there and what actually happened.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's surprising that Robert Mueller, who was investigating Russian interference, didn't find the Russian interference that literally came to his office in the form of the dossier. But at this point, I don't think
It had
anything
no idea who Fusion GPS was. I mean, it's a complete joke.
You
What a
know,
sham.
after seeing his testimony, I don't think that Robert Mueller has much idea of what's going on in general, let alone when it comes to this investigation. But before I let you go, too, I'm glad you brought up that Senate report because Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham said that James Comey will be testifying this week, and then Andy McCabe will also be coming on in the near future as well. What do you want answered in those hearings?
We deserve to know the full truth because they've been lying for a very long time. Andy McCabe was lied. That's why he was fired from the FBI for lying. They need to be under oath because they put people in jail for so-called lying to Congress and lying to the FBI. Andy McCabe lied to the FBI. Jim Comey misled Congress at the very least. And we have a lot more evidence to question them on now, especially given the fact that Jim Comey was defending the dossier when they knew in December 2016 at the least, I think that it was probably earlier than that, but at the very least, December 2016, they knew it was a Russian spy, so-called, that was a threat to national security. So they need to answer questions on this directly.
No, I agree. And I think that we should be getting that in some form because I think people are kind of sick of the I can't answer that because of an ongoing investigation type of answers. I mean, James Comey's done this a couple times. And when it comes to Comey and McCabe, they don't have too many allies on either side of the aisle. So I think some greater scrutiny is going to be starting to be applied to these former FBI heads. But Liz Harrington, I really appreciate you coming on the program, breaking down where we stand in this investigation. Thank you.